can distract us to sow seed those bad seeds in our own lives. Do you know that? He can make you do what you won't want to do to yourself. And you can sabotage your own life. He can distract us by the lure of wealth so that we walk away from pursuing the King of God because that dollar looks really good over there. There's that other seed that we talked about, the choking and the lures of the wealth can do that. Do you know that your children are the most precious thing that you got? I mean, it's precious. Your children, they're precious. You don't ever get, once you got one, it's over with. You got to, Evelyn, give a good illustration this morning about that child that grew up, and I'm thinking when he's 30 years old, we might want to kick him out. I didn't know where she was going with that story, but I'm thinking that. And so anyway, there's your children are precious. And when I was growing up and when I was raising my family, one of the things I did is I tried to pay attention to my children. I actually had to become a coach just to be with them. And I coached them in baseball, and I coached in football, and I tried to be with my children. And I even got a hurt ankle today because Caleb can throw such a fastball with a curve on it that I dodge and duck and try to get out of the way, and it hit me on the ankle, and it hurt for about 3 years. And so I don't catch for him no more. Now, if you was to give me the face mask and the body armor and the Kevlar and all that other stuff in a box to stick my hand out there, maybe we'll do that, but I didn't. But I remember one time when we were down in Macon and we were building a church called River of Life, and we had 16 senior citizens, it seemed like, and a little bit of work and a whole lot of zeal, and said, let's do this. If God be for us, who can be against us? And we were building a church, and Caleb's got a baseball game, and I remember he was playing for Jones County right over there on the old senior field. And I remember being there, and I was over there at first base, and ring, ring, ring. My son's playing baseball. I don't want to talk on the phone. And there was a guy that was pouring contract. Brother Doug, we got a problem. We got everything that's going on that could go wrong. It went wrong. They took and put the screws that come up for us to put the metal girds in the wrong place, and it ain't going to work. The whole building is not going to work. And I'm like that, and I'm distracted, and all of a sudden my son comes up to bat. And he's up there, and I want to watch my son. And all of a sudden that distraction was, we can't build a church. We got to stop production of the church. And I'm devastated. And about that time, crack. And I look, and I'm watching the ball, and I go, and it goes all the way across center field into the out, and he hit a 2-run homer, and I screamed into there was 2 people, so it was 3-run homer, and I screaming in the ear at the top of my, yay, Caleb, you did real good. And he didn't even know he'd hit a home run until he heard his dad screaming back there, and he throwed his hands up in a victory and running around the base. Now, I tell you what, that distraction could have said, I could have walked away and said, I'm just going to be distracted, but I would have never, they could have got somebody else to help finish building the building, but they couldn't have never had a dad standing over there first base, screaming at the top of his lungs, saying, way to go, son, way to go. Our kids need that. We don't need to be distracted in our lives. And every day I'm pursuing the wrong thing. I'm planting bad seed in my heart. And I'm going to reap not the life of God, but the destruction of distraction. What about the pursuit of entertainment and sexual pleasure? What kind of seeds will they plant? Or the pride and unforgiveness and worry? These things crowd out the seed of God. And we wonder why this thing called church don't work. It's because we don't have our seed right. We don't have our soil right. Like I said a couple weeks ago, when you first go out the door, it's not, what did the Lord speak to you today? God spoke this to me. No, you're saying, well, what are you going to go eat? I don't know. What do you want to go eat? I don't know. We had that last week. Let's get something. The seed is snatched right out of our lives. It ain't growing. And we say, well, I don't want to go to that church because nothing happened there. It ain't about the church. It's about your soil, whether or not it's ready to receive. The seed is good seed. It's good seed. The seed is good. But the seed has to be determined by your soil that it goes down into. So, how crazy that we can get the enemy to plant stuff in our lives. He does that. You plant it in your own life. You're riding down the road, and all of a sudden you turn on that filth called radio or that TV, and there's pornography on there, and you start letting it out. Don't blame that on the devil. There was a guy back in the 70s. Most of you don't remember. Some people might remember. His name was Flip Wilson, and his favorite phrase was, "The devil made me do it." No, he didn't. The devil didn't force your eyes open in front of that TV, that computer all night long, and you come to church and, oh, goodness gracious, Lord, if you help me through this one, I'll make the next one by myself. No, bad seed. And you planted it, and you watered it. You know the thing about this? I want to tell you something. When this enemy come in and distracted him and planted the seed, now every day you're out there watering your wheat, but guess what you're also doing? You're watering the tares. You're putting that fertilizer out there for the tares. You're sending rain, and it's amazing that sometimes those distractions, once you allow them into your life, you end up being the person that takes care of them and nurtures them and watches over them, because if you're not careful, you'll lose the seed that you got. That's crazy. Look at Galatians 6 and 7. For it says, "Do not deceive, God is not mocked. For whatever a man sows, that also shall he reap. For one who sows to his own flesh will from the flesh reap corruption, but the one who sows to the Spirit will from the Spirit reap eternal life." One of my favorite scriptures is verse 9. Galatians 6 and 9 says, "Let us not lose heart in doing good, for in due season we will reap if we faint not." I love that verse right there. Can we stop and say that we should be more careful to plant and cultivate right things in our lives? So the servant said, "Do we pull up the weeds? What about all this stuff that's going wrong in my life? You know, I have trouble with alcohol in my life, and so I'll fix it. I'll just okay." I felt like the Lord told me to hit this one, so I am, and y'all don't get mad at me. I felt like this was from the Lord. I had trouble quitting smoking, and you know, I'll fix it myself. I talked about this Wednesday night, and I remember in my life when I got saved, God delivered me of drugs and alcohol and this and this and this. He just completely delivered me. I was a changed man. When I first come into church, I had a silk disco shirt on, and I had curly shag hair all the way down past my shoulders, and I just strutting in there like I owned the place. I really did. And Lane was there. She remembers. First bad check I ever wrote was to the church. Bounce that sucker just big, because I wasn't responsible. I had all kind of tears in my life. I thought I had something. I remember going October 10th, 1984, my first time going there, and there was a birthday party that night, and I remember leaving. I don't know what kind of drugs these people are on, but I got to get me some of them, because they seem to have the good stuff. That stuff I've been getting ain't good. They got some good stuff. I really thought they were high, because they was acting so weird, smiling and grinning, having a good time, loving people. What's going on with y'all? You know, loving each other's wives and stuff like that. But I remember God, when I got saved, He delivered me from all that stuff, that junk. And here's what I told God: God, you did so good with all that junk, I'll kick the cigarettes myself. 2 weeks later, I was growling. I was a bear. I was ready to fight anybody at the drop of a hat, and I would be ready to throw the hat myself. I mean, it was bad. Everywhere I went, on the back of a toilet seat where I worked at, somebody would put a match in a cigarette. I mean, it was bad. And I bought peppermint and I bought chewing gum. We didn't have no patches back then. It was just, you was on your own. And finally, I remember one night I got down on my knees before God, and I said, Lord, I was wrong. I messed up. There's a tear in my life, and I can't get this thing out by myself. And I'm asking you, Jesus, to help me. I need help. I can't do this. And the whole time, that was the whole thing. God says, apart from me, you can do nothing. You can't get deliverance on your own. You don't have, if you could, then why did they hang you on a cross instead of me? We can't fix it ourselves. We need help. And so I said, God, help me. The next morning, I reached over there to the pack of cigarettes and a lighter laying there by my bed, and that great big old ashtrays like we used to have back in the 60s and 70s, because everybody was smoking. And I remember reaching for them cigarettes, and when I did, it felt like my hand went into jello. From that moment to this moment, I have never smoked another cigarette in my life, because the Spirit of God come in and helped me when I couldn't help myself. See, that's the whole part of this story was, He said, don't pull the weeds. I'll take care of the weeds, is what He said. The farmer said, no. You keep going over and over and over and over with those issues. You buy peppermint, you buy chewing gum, whatever your problem is. I mentioned cigarettes because of the Spirit of the Lord, but what if you're having adultery? It ain't that I'm having an affair with my wife, but I begin to think like, what would it be like if I didn't have her in my life? You see the destruction that comes? It starts thinking that way, and next thing you know, you start planting seeds in your own life. Come on, somebody. The farmer said, no, there's something that you and I have never understood before, but today it can set you free. When you begin to focus on the worries of your sin, your tares, more than you focus on the wheat, then those tares will have preeminence in your life. And the destructive power of the tares will begin to grow. It was said in this morning's service 2 times. The Apostle Paul said it this way, I forget what's behind me. Yeah, I messed up, but this one thing I do is I forget behind me, and I look forward to press the mark of the high calling of Jesus Christ. If I keep my eyes focused upon Jesus, looking unto Jesus, the author and the finisher of our faith, who for the cross that was set before him, he didn't despise the shame or the evil and the beatings and the stripes. He said, you know what, I see them in that service. And like she said this morning, somebody feels like that they have no love. There comes a time when I might need to wrap my arms around that person that Jesus said, and they might need to feel love for the very first time in their life, that they don't have to be alone. You don't have to go through life alone. And I don't have to take and pull those tares. God says, I'll take care of the tares. Sometimes he lets those tares grow up, and you try to get deliverance on your own, and you try to fix that problem, and you try to adjust that problem. You ain't going to do it. You will fail every time. I ain't going to ask you to raise your hand, but how many has had this addiction in your life that you tried and 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 you tried? For years you tried to get better, and you couldn't. Because you can't do that, because when you pull the tare, you pull the wheat. See, the wheat represents the Word of God. I got a whole lot more to say, but I'm going to close it down if y'all come. Here's what happens. Here's what happens. You try to get deliverance, and you can't get deliverance. But here's what he said. In the last days, when it's time for the harvest to grow, because if we're not careful, how many has ever tried to destroy weeds in your yard and you destroyed half your grass when you did it? You start killing the good stuff. And I'm going to fix this myself. But you end up destroying the wheat, the good soil, the good seed. I seen people buy Roundup. I'm going to kill this weed right here, and they done killed half the yard. But here's what he said. Let's keep our eyes focused on the wheat, not on the tares. I never understood this before. This was new revelation to me this week. I never saw this. I always felt like, get the tare, get the tare, get the tare. But God says, look at the wheat, look at the wheat, look at the wheat. We'll let them both grow together. And he said, whenever it comes time for harvest, I will take and send my servants out, and they'll get the tares and they'll grab them, because we don't want to destroy the wheat. If you pull the tare up right now, you destroy it. Gary, you work in that kind of business. I have seen this. I have seen centipedes so healthy, some grass so healthy that water it right, and you take care of it, and you give it the aeration that it needs, and you give it the soil that it needs. Guess what that good grass will do? Will come up and choke out the weeds, and they'll kill them themselves. If you focus on the good stuff that's going on in somebody's life and the good stuff that's going on in your life, guess what? The good stuff will take it coming. Where sin did abound, grace did abound much more.